We decided to do this webinar, Cloud This, Cloud That, what should I do? Because we get that question a lot. I'm sure that everyone, if you read or watch TV or listen to the radio, you are inundated with things about the cloud and what is it and why should you do it. So that's why we decided to do this webinar. So hoping that this will be informative for you, and then as Dee Dee said, please ask questions as we go along because there are a lot of questions to be asked. So, but these are the things that we encounter with customers and prospective customers that we talk with about new software. So just a little bit about Oasis. As Dee Dee said, we've been in business 25 years, so founded in 1991. And our headquarters is in Louisville, Kentucky. We also have a presence in Indiana, Tennessee, and Ohio. We currently have a little over 700 customers, and most of them are in that 4-state region, though we do have customers that are outside that region as well. And we believe that it's more about the people and the processes, and who you buy from is more important than what you buy. Of course, what you buy is important because it needs to function the way that you want it to. But what we've learned over the 25 years that we've been in business is that the harder part of the implementation or doing something with software is the adaptability from your staff and who is really helping you with that. So we believe that the people and the processes are more important than what you buy. So on staff, we have a mix of CPAs, MBAs, former CFOs, controllers, and some software developers. And the reason I bring that up when I talk to people is that it's important, I think, that who you work with on software understand your business. So we don't know just the software. We understand your business as well. So I think that's an important piece to it too. And then our project managers have over 150 years of combined experience. So we have a lot of experience on our staff in helping our customers in implementation of different software packages. So I want to start talking about being cloudy. One of the things that I hear people say is, I don't want to go to the cloud. You know, I don't feel secure with that. I don't want my data in the cloud, my accounting data or my my customer data. But you are already cloudy. I would imagine that most people on this call are doing one, if not multiple, of these things that are on my screen. So your outsourced payroll, that's in the cloud, Hotmail, Gmail, bank information. I mean, everybody banks, I shouldn't say everybody, but most people bank online these days. Credit card information, streaming music, photo storage sites, Facebook, LinkedIn, those are all cloud-based products. So when people say, oh, I don't want to go to the cloud, well, you're already there. So you're already cloudy, if you will. So what we've seen over the years is technology shifting, and it's shifting again. So when we started in business 25 years ago, we had a lot of people that we talked to had mainframe computers, so they were huge. I remember going into a local company here, and they had a room that was just full of computer mainframe, huge, you know, floor to ceiling, and that's what they ran their accounting software on. And I was just amazed because here I was, I didn't know it at the time, but kind of at the beginning of that technology of it being, you know, based at your desk and without those mainframes and those servers. So, and I still remember looking at that thinking, wow, how are they going to do that? But they did. It was a transition. It was a couple-year transition, but they did. But I remember there was a mainframe, and there was a programmer that sat in that room at that mainframe, and that's what he did all day long, was programmed on that that mainframe. So it was kind of an interesting thing. Then that shifted to client server, where you had smaller servers and you had a smaller server room, and then you have your desktop computers and then eventually laptop computers. So we saw that shift. Well, we're seeing that shift again to cloud and mobile computing. So some of our customers will say, you know, I'm thinking that my server's getting old. I need a new server. What should I do? Should I replace that? Should I go to the cloud? What should I do? So those are some of the dilemmas that we see people in as well. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. So cloud turns conventional software delivery on its head. So what that means is that in an ERP environment, so in an accounting software environment, depending on what software you get, you may never do an upgrade again. So a traditional upgrade, it is a lot of times those upgrades are pushed out to you, and they're automatic. So you don't go through that process. There's no more version lock. So what that means is if you're on let's say you're on version 4.5, and then the company next door to you has the same software and they're on version 4.8, and then somebody else is on 5.0. And with traditional or conventional cloud software, there's no version lock. Everybody's on the same version. It's all the same version. No direct maintenance cost. It's built into the monthly or annual cost. You can access the information from any device or browser 24/7. That's a true cloud. Scalable, flexible, high availability. So there's a lot of uptime to it. So that's one of the questions that we get all the time is, you know, if I move to accounting software that's cloud, how often do they not function? How often do they go down? That type of thing. And most of them have a 99.9% uptime rate, and so that you can see that for yourself. There's built-in security and legislations compliance, and then optimized performance. And again, when I look at that, when he says optimized performance, a lot of that depends on your internet connection and that type of thing too. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes too. So that's some of the things that the advantage of going to cloud. So the cloud impact on businesses, it's a smaller IT footprint, so you're not having a server room anymore. Or we've had some customers who have their server just in a closet in somebody's office, so you don't have that any longer. Total cost of ownership is less because you don't have that infrastructure on IT. Levels of playing field for small businesses. A lot of times cloud software is less expensive to get into up front. And then, of course, your mobile, and then promotes collaboration. And I want to talk about that a little bit, too, because that's something, when you look at that, you think, what does that mean, promotes collaboration? We use a software internally that is called Basecamp, and it's for our projects. And when I think of collaboration, that's a really good tool to think about that, because we internally use it for projects, but then our customers also can log in and look at those projects, and all the information about the projects is right there in one place. It's very collaborative between us and the client. We also use a product called Google Sheets, which is pretty popular. What I like about Google Sheets is instead of me doing something on Excel and then passing it to Dee Dee, for example, for her to change or do something, she and I can both be logged onto this sheet at the same time, and I can see her making changes, and she can see me making changes. So it's extremely collaborative. So that's another couple examples of a collaborative cloud products. And then on cloud impact on business, your disaster recovery and biz continuity planning is all built in. You're on the best and the latest technology. It's greener, faster to deploy. And when you think about that, our main business here is deploying ERP or accounting software. And when I first saw that a couple years ago, I thought, how could that be? Well, it is faster to deploy because if you bought software today and you were in the cloud, you'd be able to start using it tomorrow. You wouldn't have to wait for a server or get it installed. So sometimes when we sell new software, it might be a couple weeks for somebody to get a server. So it's quicker to get going. When you're on a cloud, you're just there. Less downtime due to IT. And typically, you can save 10 to 40% on IT-related cost. So depending on what software you're buying, you're going to be able to recognize some kind of a cost savings there as well because you're not dealing with IT. So I want to talk about a couple of, there's 4 different types of software deployment. So when people say to me, I want to be in the cloud, my first question is, what do you mean by that? What is it that you want to do? So I understand that you don't want a server, probably on premise, but what does that look like? So I want to talk about a couple different ways of deployment. So the first one is traditional on-premise. So you own the software, you pay for it up front, and you install it on your local server. So that would be on-premise. You have co-location, which is really not as popular, but we have some people that do this, where you take your server, your software, and put it someplace else for them to house it. So instead of you having it in your server closet at your office, you've just put it someplace else that is more secure, maybe has more room, that type of thing. So that would be co-location, where you're taking your infrastructure and moving it out of your office and off premises. The next one is hosted or private cloud, and that's where you use someone else's hardware, but you still own the software. This is something that is very popular for our Sage customers because they own the software. A lot of them don't want to go really to pure cloud, but maybe their server's getting older, or maybe they're just buying Sage and they don't want to buy a server. There's different hosting platforms that will host your software for you, and they are in charge of the backups, and they're in charge of making sure the server is good and doing all that. So it's not on your site, and it's not your equipment. You're not buying it, but you're just paying a monthly fee for them to do it. So that is, I'll tell you all a couple stories about this. Last year we had a couple of our customers who were hit with that crypto locker virus that locked up your files, and they asked for ransom and that type of thing. And I would say there's probably about three customers that went back and said, okay, I've got a backup from last night or maybe 2 days ago, and I'll just restore that backup and it'll all be good. Well, when they went back to get that backup, it had not backed up. So one customer didn't have a backup for 6 months, but they didn't realize it. They thought they were backing it up. They didn't test it, and when they went to restore it, it hadn't been backing it up. So a hosted environment would do those backups for you and make sure that it's working and all of that. So that's a good option. The last one is software as a service, and you all may have heard of software as a service, or it's called SaaS, S-A-A-S, software as a service. And that means that you don't own the software, you don't own the hardware. It's just, that is what I think of as pure cloud. So I'm sure everyone's heard of Salesforce.com. They're a big CRM software. They are a true cloud software because you don't own software, you're basically renting it. So you're using their software and using their space. And you pay, normally you pay annually. Some software you pay monthly, but a lot of times you pay annually for that. So that replaces, the cost of that replaces the cost of having your server, an IT person, that type of thing. So those are the 4 different. The ones that we see most of are on-premise, this hosted is becoming really popular, and then SaaS as well is becoming popular. So things to consider for each deployment. And this is just a short list. There's a lot of things to consider, and we can help you with that if you want someone to help you decide what you want to do, what's the best option for you. So traditional on-premise, you own the software and you have control over the installation, and a server is needed. So the advantage of that is that you have control of that. So when I talk to people and they say, well, I don't want to do the cloud because I want my software here in my office. I want to be able to know that I've got it and it functions and all is good. And so that's a traditional on-premise. So the pricing is the cost of the software and the cost of a server and a backup software. So depending on what that looks like for you and what software it is, that would be the pricing. And then co-location, again, you still control the software and the hardware, but the security piece is at the co-location site. You still have the cost of both things, but you're not taking that security risk or the space too. So we've had some customers who say, well, you know, we're growing and we need that server closet for an office, so we need to take our stuff off site. So co-location is a good option for that. You still own the software, you still own the hardware, and then you just pay a monthly cost for that space.
Annette,
and then host, yes.
I actually have a question somewhat related to that. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Yes, the question is, with so many highly publicized security breaches, how does Oasis assure this won't happen to our data? Can you talk about security?
Well, right. That's a good question, because that's a question that always comes up. And there's a couple things, and it goes along with how do you determine what is your best method of deployment. So there's a lot of, first I'm going to talk about the hosting scenario. There's a lot of different companies that will say they host software. So we see IT companies that say they host it, that type of thing. If you are going to host, you want to choose a provider that is reputable. They can give you documents that tell you that their agreement says that they have this security and, you know, these types of security things in place so that doesn't happen. So here locally, there's a hosting company called Peak 10, and I know they have a lot of places in a lot of different cities, but their security is like no other. They have a SAS 70 security. They have all these different security measures on their servers, and they're constantly checking them to make sure that there aren't holes in that security. That's really the only thing. But think about, too, if you still run into that risk if you have a server at your office. And actually, a hosted place is more secure than your office would be, because you're not going to do all those different security testing and all that you need. So that would be my best advice, is to make sure that the hosting place, or if you go a SaaS model as well, that they have all the security measures in place that you need. And we can give you a list of those, the things that you need and the things that we've seen too. So I would say that would be the only way that you really could protect it. Does that answer the question?
I believe it did, yes. They also are asking if updates for the ERP are automatically pushed out from a cloud service, how can you be sure that customized reports will work from upgrade to upgrade?
That's a really good question. Most software you will have a sandbox. So it's a duplication of your data, and the updates will be pushed out to that sandbox, and you can test that before you say yes that you want to deploy it. So because I remember when the first time I heard this a couple years ago, I thought the same thing. I thought, wow, how are you going to know beforehand? But it's pushed out to a test environment first, and then you test it, make sure your reports and your customizations, anything that you have work. And then when you say, yes, this is good, then it pushes to your live without you doing anything. So a lot of times the software that we've seen, they will give you a 60 to 90-day window to test. So let's say they pushed it out today. You have 60 or 90 days, depending on the software, to test that and to tell them that it's okay to push it. So hopefully that answers the question. But that's a really good question.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dee Dee. And then our last consideration on deployment is software as a service, which is SaaS. So you have no hardware. All the backups are done for you, and it's you access it with a web browser. So, and going back to what that last question was, all the upgrades and everything are pushed out into that sandbox environment, and then for testing. So the thing with SaaS is that it's subscription-based. So you are basically renting the software and renting the space from them, and if you don't pay it, then it won't function. So normally a lot of SaaS products are in the accounting CRM world, in the business world, a lot of those are paid annually. And so your subscription will go annually, and I think they give you like a 30-day, past that date to pay it. But then if you don't pay it, it becomes read-only. A lot of them become read-only. So, if you're going to go that direction, it's a commitment. We have seen people go that direction and then decide they didn't really like it, and you can get your data back. So that's always a big question too, is, well, if I do this, can I get my data back in case I wanted to do an on-premise? If I decide I didn't like this scenario, I can do it on-premise. Yes, I will say most, the ones that we deal with, you can get that data back. So they'll give it to you. You can export it out of the system and into another system. So that's always a big question too. So the pricing is, there's no cost for your hardware or software, and there'll be a monthly or an annual fee. Like I said, a lot of times on business SaaS products, it's an annual fee is what they'll do, and that covers everything. It covers the hosting of the software, the backup. If you had to, for some reason, roll your data back and restore for some reason, they would do that as well. It has that sandbox for you to play in the sandbox and play with the new versions, that type of thing. And then a SaaS model is totally mobile. So if, let's say I had my accounting on a SaaS, I could, on my phone, be able to log in and be able to see all my financials and all that information that I need just from my phone. So, which that's a whole nother security thing too. I have another presentation that we do that talks about security of that, because you think about, let's say I have my phone and I'm at Starbucks, and I wouldn't do this, but I've seen people do it, that they walk away and go up and get a cup of coffee and leave your phone or their iPad or something sitting on the table. Well, let's say I'm logged in to something that I don't want people to see, and I've just sat it down on my table. So that's a whole different discussion about bring your own device. What does that look like with security? So it just becomes a whole different thought process of how to protect your data. So here's a couple of cloud-based products that we use. I talked about Basecamp already. That's our project management collaboration tool, and what's nice about that, again, is we can collaborate with each other and with customers. It's been a really, really good tool for that. So it's one place, so we're not sending emails back and forth in spreadsheets. It's all there. Another product that we use is called DocuSign. You all might have seen this advertised. They advertise a lot. But it's document creation and signatures. So if I wanted to send you a contract, I would just set it up in DocuSign and send it to you, and then you would read it and then e-sign it, and it comes back to me. The nice thing about that too is that, let's say I send it to you and you don't do anything with it, it keeps telling me that you haven't done anything. So it keeps reminding me. I don't have to keep thinking about, I wonder if they signed that. I wonder if they looked at that. So I can see all that. So very collaborative. Google Sheets, I talked about this, and some people on the call may already use this. It's becoming really popular, but we really like it because, like I said, I can sit in my office, Dee Dee can sit in her office, we can have the same sheet open, and I can see her making changes to it, and I can make changes to it as well, instead of us going back and forth and passing things along. So like this PowerPoint, for example, had one of our marketing people here work on it, and so we just went back and forth with it on Google Drive or Google Sheets, and be able to make it very collaborative. The other thing that we use internally is called Sugar CRM, and it's a customer relationship management system. So it keeps track of all of our prospective customers and leads and that type of information, and it's totally cloud-based. So wherever I am, I can pull that up on my phone, and I can make notes on their record. There's a lot of different things that I can do with that, but I can access it from my phone or from my iPad or my computer. And then we use a software called ConnectWise. And this is a little bit different than the others because ConnectWise is a traditional on-premise software. And we have just recently decided that we didn't want to buy a new server for ConnectWise. I mean, it's like the heartbeat of our business. We manage support and project time and all kinds of things on it. And we decided we didn't want to do a new server for that, so we are going to have them host it for us. So that's going back to that hosting platform. So we're going to take, we own the software, but we're going to take it and move it to their hosting so that we don't have to worry about the backups or the upgrades or anything like that. So we're getting ready to do that. So that's a little bit different than the others that are purely SaaS models.
Annette, I actually have a question kind of related to that.
Sure.
The question is, if a company rents the software from a SaaS provider and the provider decides to go out of business, are there currently any safeguards to make sure you don't lose access to the software?
Again, it would be in the agreement that you have with the provider. So they will, in a traditional agreement, you're going to have that information. You know, what happens if you don't pay? What happens if we go out of business? You know, that type of thing. That'll all be in the agreement. So my message always to people is, when they're looking at this software, make sure you vet it out, especially if it's going to hold your finance information or your customers or your payroll, that type of thing. Make sure you vet them out and make sure that they have been in business for a while. They're not just a fly-by-night company. We've seen a lot of those. So I get emails all the time from companies that say they have a SaaS-based accounting software system. Well, they might. They probably do, but how secure is that? How long have they been in business? Did they just come out, you know, and bring this software out? So I would just make sure that the agreement, that, you know, legally you have some consequences there. I had somebody recently that told me that they are using a SaaS product, and they will occasionally, just because it makes them feel better, they will take their data and export it out and save it on a drive at their office, because that's how they felt comfortable with it. So you know, it just depends. But my biggest thing is don't get engaged with somebody who's just a fly-by-night. Check them out and make sure they have a good reputation. Talk to some of the customers that are using it and make sure that you have that. But that's a really good question. The other one to go along with that, the question that we get often is about access. So, people say, well, what if my internet goes out? Then what? Let's say if I have a hosted environment or a SaaS environment. Let's say my internet goes out. Then what? Well, you have a couple different options. Some of our larger customers have like a backup internet provider that can step in and do that. The other thing is, and we've experienced this here, is you could go home, and if your internet's working at home, you could go home or a library or wherever and log in, because that connectivity is there. So you're not worried about your server at your office. So that's one advantage of not having that equipment at your office, is that it's someplace else where you can get to it.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know if cloud software is right for me?
I think we can help with that to figure out if cloud software is the right thing for you. So what we do typically, it's pretty easy to figure it out, is, do you feel really strongly about having that software and that hardware at your place, that traditional on-premise. Some people do. I talk to people all the time that still feel really strongly about that. Well, then cloud is not for you. If you feel like that, I don't want my accounting or my customers just out in the cloud, then cloud is not for you. And then you have two other, a couple different other flavors of the cloud. I had somebody recently say that they like the idea of cloud, and this is where I get in the conversation of, okay, what does cloud mean to you? But they didn't like the idea that a SaaS model is a rental, basically, that you don't own anything, you're just renting that space. They didn't like that. They wanted to purchase the software. They didn't want to have it at their office. So the hosting option is really the best option for them, because best of both worlds. You're buying the software, but then you're not dealing with all the hardware and the IT things. So that's a hosting environment. We have other companies that buy. We have a SaaS product that we sell, which we're demoing at 2 o'clock today. If you all are not signed up, we're demoing that at 2 o'clock today. So the reason that people buy that software, the SaaS piece, is that they don't want to have any money up front. They don't want to deal with any of the hardware, the software, anything. It's more of a, they like the idea that it's a rental and that they'll pay for it and not have to worry about any of that.
There is a question about the rental. The question is the SaaS rental based upon number of users?
Yes, it is, and I'm just, this is kind of a broad answer, because in general, yes, it is based on the number of users, and a lot of times it's based also on the modules. Because think about the SaaS model, what you're doing is you're renting space. So the more users you have and the more modules you have, the larger that space has to be. Also, another consideration on SaaS is, and I'll go back to the accounting software piece of it, if you have multiple companies, that's also an additional charge, because, again, you're renting space. So if I have 5 different companies that I work with on my software, that's more space that you need. So there's a couple different things there. There's users, there's modules, and there's number of companies. Typically is how it's priced. So it just depends. So that's on the ERP side. So on our CRM, so I said we use Sugar CRM. It is billed or priced by the user. So you can have as much as you want in there, but it's priced by the user. So it's a little bit different. But they all come with that sandbox and all that.
Great. I don't see any other questions at the moment.
Okay, great. Well, I hope this was informative to you all. We have recorded this session, and it will be up on our website in a couple days. So if you wanted to look at it again or show somebody else, and then if you have any other questions, just let us know. Or if you're wondering, you know, is this the right thing for me? And maybe you've decided after this that, yeah, maybe I should do hosting. You know, maybe I have Sage software and I want to do hosting. Let us know, because we have providers that we can recommend to you that other customers are using. They're tried and true. So we can help you with that as well. And we have another webinar at 2 o'clock today, and we are going to preview one of our SaaS products called NetSuite. It's an ERP accounting software product, and we will do that at 2 o'clock today. So if you're not signed up, get signed up, and if you can't come, we will record that as well, and it will be on our website. So thank you all, and have a great day.
Thanks, Annette.